It is 5:30, and we will call the meeting to order. Welcome to the Planning and Zoning meeting of October the 19th, 2021. Roll call, let the record indicate that all members are present. Minutes from the previous meeting of September the 21st, 2021. Has everybody had a chance to read over the minutes? Are there any corrections, deletions, or additions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move we approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved as presented. We will, at this time, declare the public hearing as open. And item number one is a request for a rezone from B3 to PCD, that's a planned commercial district, at 140 Blaine Street. A code officer report.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you described, this is a rezone request. It's been initiated by the city. We've retained a contractor for the master plan, and Sadie Krosick, I believe, is here. She's the Economic Development Director. She's on the development team for this, this project, and she's going to introduce the contractor and give some context.
Thank you. I was about to ask if anyone was present, so go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. And I'm presenting on behalf of the city to introduce this rezone. We issued a request for proposals many months ago and chose this firm, Lord Act Sargent, to partner with us to help come up with a master plan for the former Walton Plaza, now known as Blaine Station. It's where our PD, municipal court, those uses are already there, but there's a lot more property and buildings that we'd like to see become a new commercial center for that side of town. And we wanted a lot of thought and time to come up with a zoning plan that we would love to see developed in the private market in coming years. And so we're really pleased with what they've come up with. Hope you guys enjoy it too. I'm going to introduce Representative from Lord Act Sargent, Bob Beagle's here, and he'll walk you through the presentation of the master plan. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Bob Beagle. I've been fortunate enough to work on this project up until now. I am a architect and planner with a firm called Lord Act Sargent, and we have been super excited about this plan as we've gone through it. I'm going to walk you through it. I hope some of you all have had a chance to look at this in advance. I'm not going to go through every single thing in there. I'm going to kind of zip through, but I can certainly come back and answer any questions along the way as we go. I also want to introduce, I do have a staffer with me who did a lot of the work. So Julia just, hello. Julie actually grew up part of her time here in Monroe, so that was one of the things that's really interested us about this project is had some personal connection. So before I get started, I do want to emphasize we had a really good team on this. Our consultant team was good, but we really had good staff participation. Your staff, you should be very happy with the work they did. So Logan, Chris, Brad, and Sadie Kay really worked pretty hard on this and were really great to work with. We began in early June. The first thing we did is do a site walk and a site tour. We also interviewed some surrounding property owners and stakeholders to get a sense of how those people might interact with this project. Again, this is could be an important project that has bigger impact beyond just the site, so we thought that was important. And then we sort of broke it into pieces. The first piece was really creating a vision, which I'm going to go through with you, and then figuring out which of those pieces do we codify, how do we actually turn it into zoning in a way that's flexible. The report has 5 parts to it. So we have a context and overview, we have the development concept, we have some development controls, and then there's a whole back-end piece where all the photographs are that are really about design features. And one of the things that we thought was important was to leave enough flexibility. It's important to sort of create enough of a code and a framework that you know what you're getting when a development comes along, but we didn't want to hem it in so specifically and difficult that you couldn't actually get developers to do it in a realistic way. So what we've got is a mix of things that are prescriptions versus things that are just guidelines. The site context, many of you are familiar with this site on the east side of downtown, sort of a somewhat forgotten side of downtown. This is our site here. Again, we looked at a lot of the surrounding properties, and in particular, we looked at potential opportunities for off-site shared parking. As you know and can see, there's a lot of surface parking here, but we're really proposing some infill development. So we are taking away some parking and adding parking demand, so we thought that was an important way to look at it. This is really a former shopping center, so it's really not a walkable kind of place, and really that's the most important part of our vision here, was to create a destination, someplace that was walkable, a mix of uses that had a variety of things in it, as opposed to just being sort of a big surface parking lot with an old shopping center behind it. So this is the plan we came up with. The plan is on the right side, and some of the pieces are on the left side. And what I thought I would really do is kind of highlight sort of 5 big moves that we made, or things that we're thinking of. Just for a little bit of orientation, Highway 78 is across the top here, Spring Road here, Blaine here. So the real heart of this place is sort of creating a small retail node in the middle. These are existing buildings. This is the new police station. And having a small retail node, we really looked at places like, for anyone who's familiar, Parsons Alley in Duluth was an inspiration for us. Similar places like that we're trying to create, again, a place that you might park, what we call a park once and walk district. So that was the sort of centerpiece. These are what we're showing in this concept plan as townhomes. We didn't, in the code, specify that they had to be townhomes. We just said it was residential. For the most part, we're showing townhomes because we thought was the way it laid out the best, but there could be some different ways to do that. The shopping center is really deeper than you need, and you have this sort of odd condition where you have Hammond Street across the backside. So this is really like the loading dock side, but it's on a public street. And because we have that added depth, we kind of came up with this notion that we could split this retail to a storefront retail facing out and storefront retail facing back towards Hammond. So that's an important concept, to really creating 2 front doors to that. We have the municipal court here, so it was important to create enough parking that could operate during court hours, and we sort of got this notion of a secured police and related parking on the backside and access to Sallyport and some of those kind of things. So we did spend some time with the police department to understand what their important drivers were. These are just some views. These are 3D views looking at the development. So in this one, you're looking north. We got sort of this new main street. We've created an open space quad that helps define these townhomes on access. We've got this retail node, and again, the shopping center around it. This is just a view from different angles. These are the site plan controls. So again, I mentioned earlier, having some flexibility between what's actually controlled and codified in the zoning versus just what are design guidelines. So these are some of the things that we're sort of trying to control a little bit. So we've got concepts for a build-to zone, meaning the front, so the buildings have to face those light blue lines. Places where we think it's important that you must put in sidewalks. That concept of green space, super important. So we have 2 locations, and later on we define sort of a minimum size of those. Parking, again, we didn't want to set up a scenario here where then a developer might come in and just build another gigantic parking lot. So we've really decentralized the parking and shown the locations and quantities of where that could be. And finally, street types. So we're sort of breaking up the site with a couple new streets that cut across and up and down the site to break it into smaller blocks. Again, I won't go through all this in detail. I can come back to any of these. These are some of the specific controls. So we broke this into sub-areas, 4 sub-areas. So we have that sort of commercial mixed-use zone in I guess it's purple on this screen. I think it's pink in our report, but purple it is. The residential area to the yellow on the south. The sort of teal colored is that commercial reuse. That's the area of the shopping center that could get reused over time. And then the sub-area 4, which is the police and court building. So different kind of controls in terms of how many square feet of building area and what type could go in each of those sub-areas. Again, with a focus on more commercial and mixed use in the pink area and a focus on more residential in the yellow area. We have quantities of units that could be built up to a certain point, or ranges. We have building heights listed, maximum facade lengths. Individual tenant size we thought was important, that we kind of create a cap on the size so that we didn't end up with someone coming in and putting in a big box or something that was overly large and sort of defeated that walkability aspect. The build-to zone, which I already mentioned, and the open space and parking. We also have a list of allowable uses that we, I think Brad in particular spent a lot of time going through your zoning code, and we kind of customized which permitted uses would make sense in which sub-area. And then finally, as I mentioned, these are sort of the design features. We have, I think, 10 different sheets of these. Again, these are not regulated in terms of the code or the rezoning. These are more design guidelines, so when the city goes to solicit and procure a developer, they can hand them these and say, this is what we are thinking, this is what we think it could look like. When we first started the process, we spent some time in this room, we put, I don't know, 100 pictures up on the wall, and we went through them and asked your planning team and your staff to go through and kind of pick it out. And I think what really jumped out to us was some notion of this being small scale, not overly large, but also not exactly a knockoff of what Main Street in downtown looks like. This isn't intended to be sort of a super traditional feel, had a little bit more of a contemporary notion to it. So we have a sheet that looks at this from the commercial side. We have another one that looks at the residential side. We have sheets that get into signage, open space, parking, a number of different aspects. And then finally, I'm going to end with this one. We thought it was important to talk about stormwater management. So even with adding in new development here, we're actually adding an additional, just about an additional acre of pervious space, given the amount of parking that was there earlier. So we're really trying to be thoughtful about stormwater management. And the way we looked at it was, and again, we're not civil engineers, so we didn't design this precise, but what we're trying to do is sort of create decentralized stormwater management. So that's rain gardens, bioretention areas, swales, and things where you can collect and filter water along the way. So that's a pretty important concept. As I mentioned, it's about a 60-page report, so there's a lot more in there than I've presented here today, but I'm happy to dig back through anything, answer any questions. Logan and your team, feel free to jump in on anything. You all were a big part of this, so with that, I will open it up for questions.
I don't have one. I'll simply say that it looks nice. Lots of details put into it, and I think it's very well thought out and much needed for Monroe.
Great. Yeah, we think it could be a new anchor on this side of town that could make a big difference. So it's been great to work on. A lot of fun.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would ask at this time if there was anybody present to speak in opposition to this request. Seeing none, we will close the public hearings, and I will entertain a motion to approve or deny.
I move we approve.
Second that.
Motion to approve and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimously is approved. We will open the public hearings again. On item number 2, a zoning text amendment number 12. Code officer report.
Yes, sir. Thank you again. Just like the previous presentation, this is a city instigated request, and it's basically to alter the zoning ordinance with the text amendment. Sorry, I'm trying to find my cover page. Bear with me. All right, and so this amendment will add a conditional use of private sewage treatment facilities to section 630.3 of table 6 in the zoning ordinance, and also modifies section 650.4, the special site requirements, by removing the minimum area requirements for planned districts and reducing street frontage requirements in the LCI district. A recommendation of staff is for approval as submitted.
Thank you. And I'd ask if there was anybody present to speak for this amendment, or is that possibly what you just did?
I guess I did present as well as inform.
Are there any questions?
I do have one. Was there a specific occurrence that prompted the text amendment change, or is that just attempting to keep current with desired code?
And this is a text amendment to allow the use, since the city has been approached to have that use in that zoning classification. We thought it was a suitable use for the zoning classification, so or amending the text amendment to allow it. It's also going to be in conjunction with another M1 use in that area, which was the biodiesel plant that we spoke about last month.
Any other questions? Thank you. I would have to ask at this time if there's anybody present to speak in opposition to this request. Seeing none, we will close the public hearings, and I'll entertain a motion. Approval or denial?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve? And a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. We will open the public hearings once more. And item number 3, a request for a COA for a monument sign at 620 Unicia Drive. Code officer report.
Yes, sir. You pretty much covered it, that the request is to replace the monument sign with a new one. Staff recommends approval of the requested certificate of appropriateness without conditions.
Okay.
There's a rendering behind you if you want to see it.
All right. Anyone present to speak for this request? Anyone present to oppose this request? Seeing none, any questions, maybe for Patrick? We will close the public hearings and entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve? Second. And a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Declare public hearings open for item number 4. Request for a COA for a convenience store with fuel pumps at 1530 South Broad Street. Mr. Code Officer.
Yes, sir. Thank you. As you stated, certificate of appropriateness, case number 252 at 1530 South Broad Street. You've got the staff report there and in your packet, and it contains 4 conditions. Staff recommends approval of the certificate of appropriateness with the 4 conditions listed in the staff report. And if you would want to have them read, I'd be happy to do so.
Is there anyone present to speak for this request? Yes. Could you come and tell us who you are and
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, my name is Clint Dixon. Address is 5230 Bellwood Court, Beaufort, Georgia. We're here before you tonight requesting the COA for a convenience store at 1530 South Broad Street. What we're proposing is a 8,100 square foot convenience store with 2 2 retail attached retail spaces. Each of them would be approximately 2,000 square feet. We're also requesting that we have gas pumps, 5 gas pumps, 10 fueling stations. We've met all the overlay requirements and parking, and we're okay with the 4 conditions.
okay, so you understand the 4 conditions and you approve?
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
Can we go back to the previous sheet? Or maybe it was the one that had the site map? There we go. So you're not intending to take up the entire piece of property there?
What we're looking at is a kind of a phase 1, phase 2. The vision for the phase 2 currently, which is still subject to change, but looking at some type of fast food use.
And the future use section is currently unoccupied as well?
Yes, sir.
No, there's a house somewhere, must be the adjacent property.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Is that the wooded section outlined there we're talking about?
Yes, that is.
Just for bearings, where in relation to South Broad is that?
Just north of churches?
No,
Or no, South Broad.
this is
So
South
there's
Broad.
it's before the,
that's Elite Storage
Next to Elite
Solutions,
Storage.
yeah, before,
across the street from Dollar General.
yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
At this time, I'd ask if there was anybody present to speak in opposition to this motion or to this request. Hearing none, we will close the public hearings, and I will entertain a motion to approve or deny. Approval would be with the four conditions.
I will motion to approve with the noted four conditions by the staff.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve with conditions. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimously as approved. We'll open the public hearings again for item number 5. A request for a COA in order to allow construction of a commercial building with convenience store and retail space at 511 North Broad Street. Mr. Kodos.
Yes, sir, thank you again. Yeah, this application 257 at 511 North Broad Street by 4 Points Construction for RALS Enterprises LLC to construct a convenience store as well. They're requesting an approval for a certificate of appropriateness in order to allow construction of a commercial building with a convenience store and retail space on a currently vacant and undeveloped land. Staff recommends approval of certificate of appropriateness request with the 2 conditions listed in the staff report and on the cover page you have in your packet. And if you have any questions, I'll be.
What are the 2 conditions,
The
please?
2 conditions, and I probably need to clarify one of them because they have some signage on there that'll be approved in this COA, but where it says for any sign in your packet, it's now just for a monument sign. Rather than having to come back for an additional certificate of appropriateness for all signs, it's just for a monument sign because they have building signage already included in their submittal.
Is there anyone present to speak for this request? Yes, sir.
So,
Give us your name, please, sir.
my name is Tejas, and with me I have Shamsun Nahar. Apologize.
Thank you.
And the request is for a COA, and it's a C-store, 3,000 square feet, and 2 retail stores with it, 1,000 square feet each.
Once again, I ask where in relation to North Broad is this?
This is just
Just the one, yeah.
south of
It's
Churches.
been basically mulched down,
Vacant lot.
two lots north of churches. And there's a concrete divider there for traffic flow currently on that section of the street, so there's only one way in and one way out, is that correct?
If you go back to the site plan, there's a right in, right out. And all of this would be subject to DOT approval.
That was my next question.
Would that need to be stipulated as a condition? Or is that?
Not necessarily. If you don't get the DOT's blessing, you're pretty much done.
I would also pass that once a curb cut is approved by GDOT, that the applicant would be able to repair, replace our sidewalk
Is that what's being defined as the eastern boundary or eastern frontage currently?
Yes.
Is that one of the two conditions right now?
That would be an
Yeah, that's correct. Let me clarify the answer to your question. What we did was added a condition that required a sidewalk to be extended from the front of the store to connect to our sidewalk. I'm kind of indicating it with the laser there on the screen. So they've shown a sidewalk in the front of the building, and what we're saying is that we want the sidewalk extended around, and then a sidewalk extended straight out to the street, because based on their architecture, you can see they've shown a windowed entry and frontage here on this side of the building, so we're asking that be extended straight out to the street. So the condition that Logan mentioned would be in addition to these two conditions.
And also to clarify, the sidewalk project that was recently completed on North Broad Street with the brick paver accents, that design would need to be restored and blended into the entrance.
So we're looking at 3 conditions rather than 2?
We would add that one if you'd like to. Yeah, well, we actually, that would necessarily be a requirement to maintain that streetscape.
You understand what?
Yeah, I understood that. As long as these conditions are written out there, that way we can also analyze them as well.
Okay.
But we do understand them.
Okay. So you're in agreement with all 3 of the conditions that you just mentioned?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Thank you very much. Is there anyone present to speak in opposition to this request? Seeing none, then we will close the public hearings at this time and entertain a motion to deny or approve with conditions.
Move, we approve with the updated conditions.
Motion to approve with the updated, the 2 original and the other updated condition on the sidewalk. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second? A second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The public hearings will be open once more for item number 6. A request for a rezone from R1 to R1a at the southeastern corner of the intersection of Double Springs Church Road and Cedar Ridge Road. Code officer report.
Yes, sir. Thank you. You described that perfectly. It's rezone case 256 for Parkland Communities Incorporated. They're requesting a rezone from R1 to R1a, which is a medium lot residential district. Staff recommends approval of the rezone request subject to the 7 conditions listed in the staff report, which we have provided to the applicant. And it's for the property, which, as you described, is at the southeastern corner, more adequately described in the legal description included in their application. It's basically 83 plus or minus acres in that location. And again, we have 7 conditions that we are recommending, along with the recommendation for approval.
How many houses are in this?
This 141 lots.
Is there anyone present to speak for this request? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Tyler Lasser with Alliance Engineering and Planning. I'm here representing Parkland Communities, the applicant. First, I want to say thank you to staff for recommending approval and your summary on the project. Just to build on to that summary, this site, again, will be 141 lots, and it'll be split up into 2 separate portions. The northwest quadrant will include 34 ranch-style homes that are a minimum of 1,800 square feet with a minimum 10,000 square foot lot. These would likely cater more to empty nesters and folks like that. The remainder of the site, which will include 107 two-story homes that are a minimum of 2,400 square feet in size with a minimum of 10,350 square foot lots. And again, that's just the minimum. Each dwelling will include a minimum 2-car garage, and they'll each be constructed with a mixture of features including brick, stacked stone, and 5 versus cement siding. The community will also feature a luxury amenity area, as you can see, towards the front of the subdivision, which will include a large swimming pool, a big cabana, plenty of outdoor furniture, in addition to a playground and a little play field for kids. Adjacent to the...
Three things again, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, a swimming pool, a cabana, furniture, and then a playground and a play field. Adjacent to the adjacent to the amenity area, there will be a parking lot, which will supply plenty of parking spaces for those residents that don't want to walk to the pool or walk to get their mail, and then also just extra spaces for any sort of overflow. Overall, the development will have a density of 1.69 units per acre. That's significantly less than the maximum allowed in the current zoning district, which is 3 units per acre, and even less than the proposed zoning district, R1a, which is 4 units per acre. As you can see, along the eastern and southern property lines, there's a stream, a creek and a stream that bisects the little southern portion of the subdivision. Within this area, there's also very dense vegetation with mature trees. The slightly smaller lots that are permitted in R1A will provide us the opportunity to cluster those lots outside of those environmentally sensitive areas and preserve a substantially larger amount of woodlands and open space. As R1, the current zoning district, we would still be able to meet that same density, no problem, but we would have to encroach into some of those areas that I mentioned. This includes that large buildable portion in the southern, I guess it's on our right and at this look. We would be able to build in that area, but it would include quite a bit of clearing and land disturbance and a stream crossing, but it would be buildable. Again, it's doable, but we'd like to limit as much land disturbance as possible. In addition to these areas I already mentioned, there's going to be further open space that will be located along the western property line adjacent to the subdivision, and also additional plantings in a 25-foot landscape strip along both road frontages. This would create a year-round screening from the subdivision to the right-of-way. Also, I've been told that there's been talks with the YMCA to provide some sort of nature trails through that open space if allowed as proposed. Overall, the use will remain consistent with the future land use map and the comprehensive plan, which calls for residential and it's encouraged. Is also consistent with the surrounding uses, including the subdivision to the south and the subdivision to the north. At this time, we agree with all the staff recommended conditions, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Do you happen to know the percentage of lots that are that are at the minimum size, or just even approximate? It looks like a large percentage of them are.
So for an R1A, 10,000 square feet is the minimum. Correct. 100% would be larger than that 10,000 square feet, for sure. Then the portions with, or the larger portion with the 2-story, they're going to be a minimum of 10,350 square feet. So they're all going to meet, they will all meet the standard, but some will be larger than that.
But you don't know even a approximation of how many will be on that 10,000 square foot range?
I mean, we'll be right on that line of 10,000 square feet.
Correct.
I'm not positive.
Okay.
I think that's a breakdown we'll have to do at the preliminary plat stage.
And what did you say the average square foot size of the homes would be?
1,800 for the ranch and 2,400 for the 2-story.
So if you wanted to modify the recommendation that we had, I think it was 1,500 minimum square feet, so accept their 1,800 square foot minimum.
What was the other condition I saw that it said minimum 6 different layouts, floor plan layouts?
6 building designs.
So would that be 6 for the ranch style and then 6 for the 2-story houses, or 6 total?
Um,
Just curious.
My client's willing to meet any condition that y'all throw our way, specifically regarding the exterior appearance of the dwellings.
So the exterior, brick, or what,
Yeah, so it'll be a combination of brick, stacked stone, and fiber cement. And I do believe there were conditions that regulated that as well. We were going to follow that regardless, but there is a condition, Condition 3, that states that it has to be those materials. So no stucco, nothing like that.
And I would suggest, since there's two sections of the development, the ranch and the two-story area, that you might want to stipulate additional building elevations for each type, rather than, because they're not going to be interspersed, they're going to be separated, just as a suggestion.
has there been a recent traffic study done?
No, that would be required prior to the preliminary plat submittal.
So what happens if we approve this with conditions and the traffic study does not come out like it should?
We'd have to make any adjustments we can to meet that traffic requirement. But we're confident that the traffic will not be too impacted by this development, since we do have an access from both road frontages.
I'm not, okay. All right, any,
Just a simple edit on the second condition. It would be just to say 6 building designs for each neighborhood presented on the concept plan. So
6
that
different,
we'd have 6 ranches, 6 two-story.
I agree with that.
It just, someone wants to make a motion to make that edit.
Do that now?
Well, not a motion, just to
Yeah.
say that's something that you would like to require.
okay.
One other thing you mentioned a minute ago, and I may have caught this wrong, or you may have not meant to say this. You said somebody, the homeowners may not want to walk to the mailboxes. Do you intend on having a mailbox kiosk, or will there be?
right, there's a planned mailbox kiosk at the front of the site near the amenity area in the parking lot. That's how we're proposing right now. There's sidewalks throughout the development, so it's very walkable, but it just makes it convenient that there's a parking lot there as well.
And the
then
cluster box units, just so everybody's aware, are now a requirement by the USPS,
Okay.
rather than mailboxes at each home site.
And then the playground and swimming pool areas across from that,
Mhm.
correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
You also said the YMCA would be assisting with walk paths through there?
Yeah, our team has had discussions with the YMCA folks to potentially have a trail connection between the two sites.
Nothing definitive, though.
Not that I'm aware of. It's not set in stone yet, but being discussed.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'd ask at this time if there was anyone present to speak in opposition to this request.
Good evening. My name is Jim Campbell, and I am here with a group of others. May I ask them to stand to show who is here interested in this matter?
Thank you very much. I would ask, are you the spokesman for this group?
I am only one of the group that would like to speak tonight.
Okay.
Okay. So I would like to comment on this type of development that we have here in Monroe and Walton County. I live on Double Springs Church Road. I've lived there for a little over 30 years with my family. For those of us who live in the area presently, a more natural and less densely developed environment is a primary reason we are here and plan to stay here with future generations of our families living in our homes and on our land. It is in our job, and that hopefully of the elected city and county officials, to protect what we have for our sake and for that of our children. Who considers dense development like that found in Loganville and Snellville a thing to be desired? I know of the developer's interest, but they don't live here and will not feel the effect of rapid and dense growth. So what would be the benefit for us? And what would be the benefit for our city or for our county? With the city of Monroe and Walton County, we have a very unique and quality combination of rural land and a well-developed small town. But in my opinion, in my family's opinion, and I believe I share the same sentiments with most of our residents, that this is not the direction that we could soon be headed. If we stand for what we have, while we have not overdeveloped too many of the farms and rural places for the sake of high-density growth, we can be sure that we will not join our neighbors to our west and thus turn a place of tranquil, generational family growth into one of a more urban and congested nature. If there is widespread support among the residents for this rezoning, and if there is widespread support for any such development in our city and our county, I'm surprised. I'm a little surprised that we must take up the defense of something that seems so intuitive as that of preserving the kind of place where we live from the kind of development that would take it from us as they have done in other towns. So we look here to you all for the recognition of these matters. And it is for these reasons and other reasons that we are here to share that it is of great importance that we do not allow the proposed rezoning and that we even take further steps in consideration of the preservation of our town and the areas that we live in. Thank you.
Mr. Campbell, would you be so kind as to state your address for the record, and anybody else who speaks, give name and address?
Yes, Jim Campbell at 2580 Double Springs Church Road.
Sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Amy Mahan, and I am a resident of Double Springs Church Road, have been for over 20 years. My address is 1735 Double Springs Church Road, and I am two of, I believe, 4 or 5 possibly that will be speaking in opposition of this. And one of the points, the first point that I would like to make is centered around more quality of life. And Jeff had touched a little bit on this. Anywhere, our Double Springs Church Road is made up of many parcels that are between 5 and 100 acres. That's one of the things that we really like about Double Springs Church Road. As mentioned last week, in reference to this, you know, at any given time, you can drive down Double Springs Church Road and, you know, there may be people, you know, riding a horse or, of course, kids out riding their bikes, a tractor, you know, driving down the road. With this development and the proposed 141 lots, in conjunction with the other one that is being considered, which is an additional 340 lots, that's a lot of houses, a lot of additional cars. There's also, you know, the other property that's sold on Cedar Ridge and closer to 78, which I realize is a county, a property within the county and not the city, but we're yet to know what is going to come of that. We hear that that's going to be another, you know, several lots. Not to mention the shopping center that we have that's going to be opening up in a couple of months. we really don't know what the traffic or the impact of that shopping center is going to be with the additional traffic. Double Springs Church Road is kind of a connector between, Monroe to Gwinnett County. Whether you're going towards 81 to Gwinnett County or going, to 78 to get to Loganville and to Rockdale County from Monroe. So there's a lot of concerns that we have in the quality of life as we see it now on Double Springs Church Road. With the traffic study being done, what crossed my mind was what stipulations, with the results of that traffic study, that's great. You can do a traffic study, but I don't think, in time, I don't think it's going to be relevant until the new shopping center opens up, until we get that going and see what the impact of that is. And then also, the impact of this other, proposed 341 lots. It's going to be a lot of traffic. So I would clearly we're in opposition of this, and there's not a whole lot that we can do with it being R1. Of course, I guess that means that there would be less homes or less lots, but I would just, like to ask you all to please, think through this and keeping in mind the residents on Double Springs Church Road. We've lived there. We really would like to continue to be happy and, do what we do, but the additional traffic's going to make a huge difference for us. And, I realize that too, we're in the county. And as Lori had mentioned last week, has the city working with the county or in communications with the county? Because this is a lot too. Is this going to impose, things that are going to have to be maintained or taken care of on a county level? So it's not just a city impacting the city. It's going to impact those in the county as well that are nearby. So I would, I'd bring all of that to your attention, and I know that there's a couple of others that are going to speak to some other points, but we appreciate your time and consideration in opposition of R1 to R1a. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else? I would ask you to be as brief as possible, but with your points. But if you have new points to offer, that would be great. Otherwise, all the points that have been covered, let's don't do that. Thank you.
My name is Kaylin Vanderhorst, and I'm also a resident of Double Springs Church Road and have been for the past 9 years. I live at 2116 Double Springs Church Road. I'm bringing a different perspective. I'm actually a local real estate agent, so I live in Monroe and specialize in the area. And I'm standing here today. That is how I feed my family, and that is how I run my business, is by selling and buying homes. I'm standing here in opposition of this, of bringing homes that could potentially feed my family. For the simple sake of, we've come to this conclusion of the 141 homes that are requested to be built, but also last week coming as well to the River Point subdivision, which will have 300 and something homes as well. I just ask, I know growth isn't inevitable. I'm in real estate, I understand that. I understand that you buy a piece of land, you want to develop it, you want to make some income off of that. However, I feel as though we are moving pretty quickly, especially with the new shopping center, the other community as well, and then this one is proposed, that we table some things and wait until we do have a traffic study. And he says they'll do what it takes. Well, right now we only have 2-lane roads. Are they going to widen the roads? Is it going to be a situation where we have to have 4-lane roads in order to accommodate the traffic? I'm sure most of you have sat on 138, Highway 11, 78, especially at certain times of day, in front of Longhorns, in front of Walmart. You sit there for a very long time. And even on Broad Street, Highway 11, the trucks coming through, it gets very congested. So I just ask again, coming from a real estate perspective, I'm taking money off of my table in order to make sure that we preserve the city of Monroe and preserve what we have and not become the next Loganville, the next Grayson, and the next Snellville. We don't need that. That's not what we are. Let's preserve our county, and let's preserve city of Monroe. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Janice Hawks, and I live at 2301 Double Springs Church Road. I have a son that lives at 1730 Double Springs Church Road, and we own our family owns the 100-acre Hyatt Farm at 1965 Double Springs Church Road. I tell you all of this to tell you we are very vested in this road. We love it. My husband and I moved down here from Atlanta 20 years ago to get out of the chaos up there, and now I feel like we're slowly losing what we moved here for, which was peace and tranquility in this beautiful little town that we love. And so we really, really object to this congestion that's going to be built at the end of our road. First of all, next, it's a dangerous road. We have 2 blind curves. And when I say blind curves, I mean you cannot see around them. They're right-angle curves with no view around them. And I would not be standing here before you today except that I missed a terrible accident by 1 minute. I was driving from my son's house to my house, and a car full of teenagers came around one of those blind curves, and I saw what was going to happen, and I stopped quickly. And instead of blindsiding me in the driver's side, they hit a tree. They totaled their car, and I stopped, and these teenagers fell out of the car bleeding and crying and panicked. And I called 911, and the police and ambulance came. They all lived, but they were all seriously hurt. That's one curve. On another curve, I was run off the road by a yellow school bus, because those school buses are really bigger than a half a road. I mean, it seems that way, but where he ran me off at that time, it was kind of a level gravel area, and I was able to just pull off and pull back on. So it's a dangerous road. We don't need any more traffic on our road. And this many houses, in addition to the other plan that was presented last week, it's going to, for every house that's planned, that's 2 cars. It's every house times 2 cars that's going to be on our road. And can you imagine rush hour, 7 a.m. in the morning, when the school buses are going to the high school and parents are taking kids to school and going over to the elementary school behind the high school? How many cars is that going to be? And all these additional houses, people coming out, going to work, going their way for their, and then at the end of the day, can you imagine coming back in that way? So there's only so many ways out of there. It's a very congested area when you think about it. Cedar Ridge has a blind curve on it, and it's a very narrow road that goes out to 78. And then our road is very narrow, I've already explained the blind curves, and it is a connector road, kind of. People cut through there all the time. That's one of our problems. And then how else are they going to get it? They could go all the way up Double Springs Church Road to the Charlotte-Rowell Park connector and get over on 138. But that's in front of the high school, which also, across from the high school, we're about to get a senior living facility. So you put it all together, that's a lot more traffic than we need on our little narrow road with those dangerous curves, unless something's done about those curves, but it's still too much traffic for our road. And as was mentioned earlier, we moved here for a certain lifestyle. People walk up and down that road, walk their dogs, ride bicycles, ride horses. It's what we moved here for, and we don't want to lose it. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Susan Tyre, and I live on Double Springs Church Road. We moved there in 1994 and built our home in 2000, and I'm trying not to repeat what others have said. So I'm just going to quickly give you a visual of our road so you can see exactly what we're talking about, because it's not shown on this. We are further to the west of this. So the blind curves are here, here,
very narrow area. Cedar Ridge also has areas like that, where you're coming around the corner, you can barely pass a car that is coming at you from the other direction. Also, another issue that I understand was on your staff's report was the water and sewer demand, and we just want to be assured what measures are going to be in place, that we're going to have adequate protection from fires as far as water pressure and that type of thing. Our questions to the developer is, would he consider fewer homes on larger lots to be more in keeping with the area there? Everything around this is R1 or A1, like our road. And would he consider that? We would not be opposed to that. Let's work together. The city and the county need to be good neighbors to one another, and we need to respect existing and established communities who've made their lives out here, and we want to be the good for everyone. So we respectfully ask you to deny this zoning request.
Thank you.
My name is Frank Masiello. I live on 1710 Double Springs Church Road. And I'll be quick because everybody pretty got to the point. But a couple of things that I'd like to bring up is that on our road, we already had it was an event structure that was going to be built, like a wedding hall or whatever. It was going to be built, and it was beat. We fought it and we beat it. Now the request was withdrawn, but from my conversations with all the county commissioners, they were against it. So it had an 85 parking spots that was going to be into it, and it, caused all the traffic and everything with the drinking and the alcohol and everything. So I just want to let you know that, because I haven't heard it brought up. The other thing is that I'm concerned about, I have grandchildren. Where are these kids going to school? I mean, how are we going to stuff them into all these schools? Are we going to start throwing portables up and overcrowding classrooms? As far as I'm concerned, that's one of my biggest concerns. The other thing is, I live right along the Morgan's Crossing subdivision. We fought that also. It went down to a tiebreaker where Kevin Little broke the tie and allowed it to go through with a lot of opposition. But the things I'd like to talk about real quick about that is being an owner against a subdivision. I have just under 15 acres. The Gregios have just about the same, and Hawks have about 50 acres altogether down at, we border that. We have a creek. One of my main concerns was my water, because I hunt on that property and I use that water for my recreation, for my food plots, this, that, and the other. The creek's down to nothing. There was studies done. They put bottles down there with little wheels on and whatever, but when I called the county, nobody knows nothing about them. But I lost 3/4 of my water on my creek. I'd like to know what could be done about that. My answer is that this thing is a direct watershed to the Alcovy River. And everybody that, I would think 90% of us are on wells. My concern is our groundwater safe? Because we're not going to have our natural flow of water, because there's going to be, with all these subdivisions being built, there's going to be retention ponds that's going to collect all the stuff that runs off from the subdivision into these retention ponds, and then God knows what happens after that. I don't think there's one of you that can tell me or guarantee me that my groundwater is going to be safe in the future. And I'm not going to be going on no city water. The other thing is I'd like to ask is, I see this plot that's up there. There's been a lot of time and money spent into that. And I don't know the answer to this. I was hoping that somebody can answer it for me. Is this property bought and sold to the developer yet, or is it still under the owner's ownership?
I don't know the answer.
I don't know the answer to that.
The owner of record on the application is Rowell Family Partnership and Still Family Realty LLC. So apparently they're applying on behalf of them with their permission. But the owner is still Rowell Family.
Okay. Here's where I'm going with it. I've been to a lot of these meetings from the county and the city and just listened to what the growth is going on in the county and the city. And quality of life is definitely a big concern. Did the infrastructure cost to get these things going, what is that? Is that going to be like in the multi-million dollars? We need a pump station, we need sewage, we need new water lines. The hydrants are definitely not going to contain this or help it. They're all under, what, 500 gallons per minute on that road, where it's supposed to be 1,200? So you already know you got to do fire protection more. And then the sewage, because you're not going into septic tanks on these things because they're not big enough. So here's the deal. I would like sometime to sit and hear county planners and city planners come up to places where where this property is so critical to flow it into a better situation. Do you all ever think about maybe buying this land for like the city and the county buying it, to keeping it like it is and making it a natural park, to keep this crazy overpopulation coming in? I mean, where is this? I've never seen anything discussed like that. Because everything is like, we want to rezone, we want to do this. It's all to get like a multiple dollar figure from whoever's going to do it. Why don't we just think about the people in the communities, both of us? I mean, a park for the people in the city of Monroe. I mean, is there a huge park anywhere around here where you can go and walk and whatever? I mean, I seen a thing about a river plan that's going to be 15 or 20 years down the road, but I'm going to be gone by then probably. But I would like to see maybe this be, and I've brought this up at the meetings when we went for the Morgan Crossing thing. I said, why couldn't we have a more flowing thing into the county instead of giving, I mean, I'd hate to get into everything I got into, but here we go. I hunt on my property.
Mr. Chairman, that's 5 minutes.
Excuse me?
That was 5 minutes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. But anyhow, I hunted on my property. I've had people come over and tell me I'm not allowed to hunt. What I'm doing is unethical. I had the developer rip up my tree stands, take my signs down, and tell me that my property line is not where it was. And I've had to have the sheriff come in and get this thing resolved. So there's a lot of things, more things that wasn't discussed tonight, but I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that has something to add that may be different from what's already been said?
Good evening. My name's Todd Mitchell. I live at 2260 Double Springs Church Road. I just want to echo, my concerns, the same thing that everybody else had. I'll give you maybe a little bit different perspective. I'm an airline pilot. I travel around the country, and there are certain places that I go to that I love to go to because they have something unique. I moved to Monroe in 2005, and in 2005, Monroe was not unique. In 2021, Monroe is unique and it's desirable, and I'm opposed to having more homes than needs to be. I realize there's a right to build, so I would, oppose changing from R1 to R1a. But I just want to commend the city for doing what they've done over the last 15 years, because this is a great place to live. When I see something like this, when I see lack of infrastructure planning, willy-nilly growth like, Loganville, Snellville, I don't want Monroe to become that. I would love to see Monroe become someplace that people come to from around the country and go, oh my gosh, that is a great little town. They've done a great job planning. If this gets approved, I'm afraid there's going to be a domino effect of other developers saying, oh, we want to build medium density instead of high density, or instead of low density, et cetera. I would hate to see a domino effect happen and have all the city land end up being choked off. So I just want you guys in planning development to realize that you're in a unique position. You've done a fabulous job, and I would ask you to not succumb to developers who want to start jamming things in. Medium density, high density, downtown in the core of the city, beautiful. That's where it's supposed to be for. Livable, walkable. You're going to walk to the YMCA and the high school at this place. This needs to be R1. It's at the very outskirts of the city. You need to have the most room and draw down to your high density and medium density the closer you get to the city. keep Monroe what it is today, because you've done a great job. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, unless there's anyone else that would like to speak. Comments, questions? I personally would like to see a traffic study done to include everything else, including the Monroe Pavilion and the other requested things that are going on. And I would think that maybe a table would be in line for about 60 days until December to look at the situation and maybe let us have a chance to really think further about it. That's just my opinion.
Does anyone have an estimate of how long a time study takes to set up?
They take varying amounts of time depending on the scope of the study, so I really couldn't give you an estimate on that. It could be a week, it could be 90 days. It just really depends on the scope of the study, and we would have to work that out if it was tabled and get with the developer and discuss exactly what the scope would be to satisfy what you're desiring.
Mr. Chairman, there are a lot of valid issues raised tonight, and I really appreciate the input from the people that are here. And I'd move that we table this.
Let me first of all close the public hearings.
Okay, sorry.
And that's okay. And at this point now, would entertain a motion. A motion that we table, I would think, until December.
Yeah, it just has to be to a specific date.
It does have to be to a specific.
Yeah, so it can be either next month.
Mr. Chairman, you want to take, I'm gonna let
If you table it without a specific date, it will table to the next available meeting. If you table it to a specific date, then you can table it to a specific date. So,
But not an occurrence, such as the results of a traffic study.
no, you need to table it either, and if you can table it indefinitely, we would not recommend that, given public notice and hearing issues and the realities that I know the developers will work in conjunction with staff to deal with things. Either table it, and then it will come up at your next meeting by operation of rules, or you may table it to a specific date. Those would be your two options that we would recommend for a tabling.
to supplement what Paul's saying, to your concern about requiring a specific traffic study prior to the rezone condition or the rezone hearing being heard, I think you guys are going to have to be very specific as to what you're trying to get from that traffic study itself. And the reason I say that is that if you look at the conditions we've recommended for approval, if it's approved, we've recommended that a completed traffic study be done before they submit a preliminary plat, and that would be to identify potential off-site improvements or potential impacts to other intersections outside the scope of the actual subdivision itself. That condition is followed by a development agreement with the city of Monroe that could potentially be a beneficiary from that traffic study to identify those improvements, so the developer could potentially contribute to that. This body tonight, if you require a traffic study, I don't know that you're going to be able to condition them to do certain off-site improvements, but that development agreement may be able to do such. So the way we've got these proposed would be the order of the development itself is that the rezone, if approved by city council, they would have to do those two steps. That's not ignoring your concerns at all, because I think those conditions would address your specific concerns.
So what is your recommendation?
Well, I would recommend that if you approve it, that it include the 7 conditions we've outlined in staff's report. That they complete those steps prior to submitting any further documents to the city, that being the next step, a preliminary plat.
And just to add on to that, if you make a motion to table, then not necessarily require that traffic study as a condition. Is that?
Yeah, I think that's fair, because
So remove the traffic study from the tabling motion, if that's the direction you choose to go.
May I ask one more question before we Table the motion. Can somebody clarify, I thought the information was here in the packet, but the allowable density between R1 and R1a, can somebody clarify that for me again, please?
3 units per acre or 4?
3 units per acre or 4?
Yep. R1, 3, R1A, maximum 4.
I have a question too. How far from this proposed site would the 300 and some odd other houses be, right?
It's
That's
That
this
other-
property here, if you can see the.
within a quarter of a mile.
Kind of highlighting, it. The subject property here, obviously, the project that you're talking about is across the street.
Thank you.
Will both parcels, projects have City of Monroe utilities?
Yes, if
Yeah.
built, that, it depends on service delivery territories, but I think all of those utilities would be provided by the city.
Another reason I'm going towards tabling also, because I have some infrastructure questions.
Exactly. I'll make a motion, we table.
Motion is that we table until December.
Till December, I think it's fair enough. Time to consider, yeah.
Motion is that we table until the December meeting.
Second.
And the second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Tabled until December.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Is there any old business? New business? Motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Motion, second.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Okay.